So welcome to Behind the Resource Card. This is a speaker series that is meant to humanize and normalize these hotlines that appear on our resource cards here at Hope for the Day. So if you haven't seen those before, that's these. And we have these wonderful resource cards for all of our different areas of specialty and conversations. And often when we hand these out at community spaces and music venues, people take them, but they don't really know what they're going to get. And it can be really uncomfortable and uncertain to what type of experience they may have when they're calling for help or when they're calling for help for a loved one. So I want to validate that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to ask for help.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Drevna. I'm the Vice President of Communications at BRAIN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, and we created and operate the National Sexual Assault Hotline. The National Sexual Assault Hotline has been around since 1994 in telephone form and through 2006 in online chat form. Our founder realized that there was no central repository of information for where to go or what to do after sexual assault. And so the National Sexual Assault Hotline was originally created to help link the local sexual assault service providers across the country, give one number that folks could call to route to the resources closest to them, but then also one number that they could call if they didn't want to access those local resources and preferred to receive services anonymously and at a distance, to make sure that folks still had access to that no matter where they were. The National Sexual Assault Hotline can be accessed in one of two ways. You can call 800-656-HOPE to be connected via phone, and you'll be given the option if you would like to connect with a local sexual assault service provider. We're part of a network of over 1,000 local providers across the country, and you can connect with them by entering your zip code. And you'll be routed then to connect with that local provider. You can opt not to connect with that local provider and speak with RAIN support staff directly. The hotline is 100% anonymous and confidential. We believe so strongly in the confidentiality that we've created all of our own technology that undergirds these platforms. We will not ask for identifying information. We do not share chat transcripts. We do not record that information. We do not ask for any of that information. You can also connect with us via online chat. And similarly, we don't record IP addresses. We don't record and save chats transcripts. None of that information, as soon as you hit our platform, is saved in any way. But similar to what Bree described, if a caller or a visitor would like to be connected to law enforcement, we can help make that connection with the right information, but only if the caller makes that choice. So if you connect via phone or chat, the experience is similar. You're connected with a support specialist who has received extensive training in supporting survivors of sexual assault as well as their loved ones. It's something that a lot of people don't know about the hotline. It's there not just for survivors, but it's there for loved ones of survivors who are working through how to support their loved ones or how to talk to their loved ones and just looking for a supportive ear and suggestions. The conversations are not time limited. There are no scripts. They're completely survivor led from a strengths-based approach. So we really want to help survivors wherever they feel that they need that conversation to go in that moment, and for however long they feel that they need that conversation to continue. So anytime sexual violence is in the news, we definitely see a spike in calls and visits to the hotline, particularly when someone who's in the public eye discloses that they are a survivor or shares their experience. For instance, a celebrity, one of the busiest days we had this past year was when Demi Lovato's documentary came out back in the spring, and she talked about her experience for the first time. Similarly, we work with a lot of entertainment media who are dealing with the subject to encourage them to include the hotline information as part of their shows, so that resources are right there and ready for people when they're consuming that media. So we do see periodic spikes when these shows air. And fortunately, working with the producers of those shows, we're able to make sure that the hotline is staffed up in anticipation of those spikes as well. But then there are the news stories that we can't prepare for. I think our single two busiest days, a 48-hour period, came during the testimony of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford in Judge Kavanaugh's hearing. We saw a more than 300% spike in traffic to the hotline during that time. So we know that these types of events, especially when we see survivors speaking out, encourages others to speak up and to seek resources by letting them know that they're not alone and seeing their own experiences reflected. We do. We saw about a 30% jump last week when the R. Kelly verdict came out of that 24, 48-hour period. Similarly, when Bill Cosby was released from prison earlier this year on a technicality, we saw a spike for a few days as people worked through the emotions associated with that as well. It's really anytime something is in the news, we can definitely expect an increase, but some of the most powerful increases tend to come from the more positive disclosures. I think you can say there was a special that aired on Lifetime last week featuring Olympic gymnast Aly Raisman, for instance. They included the hotline information as part of that. We saw a 99% jump in calls over the 48-hour period after that, because people are so touched by her story and the stories of the survivors who were part of the special as well. But it is, whether it's a positive story and someone talking about their healing journey, or whether it's an injustice like a court case gone wrong, anytime it's in the news, we know we're going to see more traffic. Yeah, everything everyone just said, same thing. We get the, is this a bot or is this a script, or a lot as well. But I do think the police piece of it is really important. Everything is confidential and anonymous, and we will not connect you to emergency services unless you ask us to. However, we are mandated reporters. So if you do supply enough information that we need to make a mandated report, that will have to happen. However, we will warn a visitor anytime they disclose something that falls within that information, because we need a certain amount of information before we reach that threshold for a mandated report. So it is, if you're not ready to report, if you don't want to report, you can talk with us, even if you are a minor, and we do get a lot of minors coming to the hotline, unfortunately, and still keep that protected. We want you to be able to use that confidentiality and that anonymity to feel safe and to feel like you can access that support. Sure. So certain folks in different positions are required by law to prevent, or to report if someone who is part of a vulnerable population, for instance, a minor or someone who is elderly, is in a vulnerable situation or is being abused. So in order to make that mandated report, we would have to know how old someone is, for instance. So they would have to share with us that information. So if someone starts by saying, I'm a kid, we might warn them, we'll tell them about our mandated reporting policy and warn them that if they provide us with additional information, such as their location and their name, we may have to make a mandated report based on that. I think that's just an incredible point, and beautifully said, Rachel. I think that's really the key of it is, we're here for you. We're here. We believe you, and we'll work with you however you need to work with us. If you're just looking for someone to talk to, we have folks here to talk to. But if you are looking to talk about your options, if you want to know how to report, if you want us to stay on the line with you while we contact law enforcement and you wait for law enforcement to arrive, we will do that. Those options are there for you, and it's as much or as little as you're looking for. We did see right as the pandemic took hold, for the first time, we saw the majority of visitors to our online hotline became minors. So we know that there are a lot of kids experiencing this. They're not alone. And, this is one way that they can understand their options and reach out for help, even in an isolated time like we're having right now. These hotlines are so important to people. Similar to everything Rachel just said, again, if we receive extension over 40 hours of NACP credentialed training, which is the National Advocate Training Credentialing Program, along with monthly in-services and continuing education throughout their tenure. Training is not a one-time piece. We have an actual whole training department, because we know that training is so important. Because we're an individualized service and an anonymous service, we need to be ready for anything. We know with various intersecting identities, and staff are prepared for that, as well as prepared for anything that they might be experiencing. We know people are primarily calling to talk about sexual violence, but we know a lot of other mental health concerns come along with that, particularly suicidal ideation. So our staff need to be prepared for that as well. If we take service complaints very, very seriously, so if someone has a bad experience, we want to know about it. Again, contacting us directly is the best way to do that. And we can, even though the service is anonymous and we don't track data, if you do know the name of the person that you were talking to and found the time that you called, we can work from that. If you can't get through to us through other means or you don't remember those things, we monitor social media very closely. So DMing us on Twitter or other places like that are another way to get through to us, if you have a problem contacting us through traditional means as well. Yeah, folks can visit rain.org, which is rain with two N's. And on our navigation under the section that's labeled How to Help, there's more information on volunteering, including an interest form, as well as requirements for volunteering. Because of the extensive training that's necessary, we do ask that people make at least an 18-month commitment to helping to volunteer on the hotline, to make sure that we're able to count on them as part of that staffing model. Yeah, I think similar to what Rachel said, this is such a pervasive issue. 1 in 6 women and 1 in 33 men have been the victim of an attempted assault or a completed assault. So it's somebody you know, it's someone you know very well if it's not in fact you, and making sure that these resources are available. My role is in communication, so making sure that people are aware of these resources is really my passion, and getting that word out there as far and wide as we can. And to also help change attitudes and change the national conversation, to really be more supportive of folks. It's just an issue. I made it rain about 2 years ago, so really happy to be on this now. And similarly, the National Sexual Assault Hotline is here for family and friends, as well. And so if you're concerned about someone, particularly if you're concerned about a child in your life, please call. Our support specialists are there to talk that through with you, to talk through how to approach that with you and coach you through that. I think it'll never hurt to call. You can always get information, and if it turns out you that's not the direction that you think you need to go after talking to someone, but it never hurts to make that call and get more information. I think similarly to that, you have the power to support survivors and make a difference in their lives as well. We know from our 27 years of experience with folks on the hotline, that the first reaction a survivor receives to disclosing their experience has a profound effect on their healing journey and their ability to move forward. If they're met with belief and with empathy and with support, and not met with blame or questioning or shame or judgment, it can have a huge impact on their ability to move forward in a healthy way. So we spend a lot of time talking to folks about how they can support the survivors in their lives. We have resources on our website at rain.org/talk, where we've created a handy acronym to help folks remember how to respond if someone with support, if someone does come and disclose to them that they are a survivor. But it really boils down to listening with empathy and listening without judgment, and not centering your own emotions and your own reactions in that conversation, but being there for the survivor and helping them decide what their next step is going to be for them, rather than imposing your own view of what they should do next on them. It really comes down to listening. And I think that if people only knew the power that they had to impact others' lives positively, it would make a huge difference for so many people.